Sponsored by Skillshare. Apple's really been bringing the fire over the last couple of years. A lot of the products that had fallen off the radar, or simply fallen off, were brought back, some with swagger, some even with a vengeance. We got a new big iPhone with Macs, an updated MacBook Air, Mac Mini, iPad Air, iPad Mini, basically all the Airs and Minis, and most recently, a new MacBook Pro, Mac Pro, and Pro Display. Yeah, all the Pros too. But big and badass as some of those products are, they're not all the products. Even now, at the end of the decade, there are still some gaps in Apple's lineup, some holes, some products that are just plain missing in action. So, since I'm me, I figured I'm gonna list them all out, all video-like, and let you know which, if any, I think we might actually have a shot at seeing in the next year or few. Starting with the Mac. I'm Rene Ritchie, and this is Vector. The original 2008 MacBook Air came in one 13-inch size, fits anyone willing to pay its initial $1,800 price tag. But when Apple redesigned it in 2010, they also double-sized it, adding an 11-inch model. Apple discontinued the 11-inch Air in 2016, about 18 months after introducing the 12-inch MacBook. And last year, when Apple announced the third major MacBook Air redesign, there was nary an 11-inch in sight. So, let's start there. For everyone who loved the old 12-inch PowerBook, 11-inch MacBook Air, or 12-inch MacBook Stealth, how about a 12-inch MacBook Air? One that uses the same principles as the new 16-inch MacBook Pro to fit it into a barely more than 11-inch package. Sure, the iPad is increasingly expected to carry the extreme ultralight carry, but for writers, founders, and anyone who prefers a notebook and a Mac at that, the 12-inch is a big miss right now. Do I think we'll see one anytime soon? I actually do, though I don't know if it'll be a new 12-inch MacBook or a new 12-inch MacBook Air, or the first MacBook ARM. See my video on that, link in the description, for much, much more. On the flip side is a 16-inch MacBook Air in the dimensional style of the new 16-inch MacBook Pro. You know, for people who want bigger screens but don't need pro-level compute to go with it. Apple's never really gone into that part of the market, not with the previous Airs, not even with the original iBooks and MacBooks. Bigger screens have always been the domain of the more powerful machines. And I'm guessing it's not on the current Intel-based roadmap, but as the mainstream computer market broadens, and sure, the population ages, I hope it's something Apple is considering, especially following any move to ARM. Given that Apple has just released the 16-inch MacBook Pro of my and many others' dreams, a similar if slightly smaller 14-inch MacBook Pro redesign just seems inevitable at this point. It probably won't go to the stratospheric 64 gigabytes of memory and 8 terabytes of storage of the bigger model, not just because of size, but because of power efficiency. But as long as it gets the new scissor switch keyboard, which is now my favorite MacBook keyboard ever, a lot of people will be a lot of happy. So this is as close to a when, not an if, as I have on this list. The only big question remaining for me is if there'll be a big graphics option on the highest end. You know, an AMD one capable of driving the Pro Display, so people can be extra portable on the go, but extremely dynamic at home or at work. Otherwise, Apple may just figure anyone with the XDR on their desks won't mind slapping an eGPU down right next to it either. The standard iMac was updated at the beginning of the year. And, internally at least, it's in great shape, especially if Apple continues to push new Intel and AMD chips into it as they become available. Design-wise though, it's showing its circa 2012 age. MacBook Air aside, Apple has pretty much spent the last few years Thanos snapping half the bezels off every other product and almost completely off the iPhone. So, a redesign feels likewise inevitable. I don't think Apple would use the same 5-dimensional cheese grater language as the Pro Display, but some of that boxiness and a lot of that mini LED technology would make for one hell of an update. Apple brought high-density Retina and wide-gamut P3 to the iMac with eye-popping results. Even if they can't go XDR yet, given the packaging constraints, anything closer to HDR would be a treat. And while I still expect new ARM MacBooks will be the first to bring Face ID to the platform, because you don't even have to open or close a lid, the iMac is both a better and worse candidate for it, in terms of convenience versus unintentional unlocks. Also, frankly, anything to get better cameras in the Macs at this point. Literally anything. Of course, non-MacBook Macs still haven't even gotten Touch ID, so at the very least, an updated Magic Keyboard with that fingerprint reader should also be on the top of any list. So should a space black Magic Keyboard without the numeric pad. It's one of Apple's most glaring current product omissions. And yes, of course, 10 years since the last redo and 5 years since going battery-free, a Magic Mouse redesign that doesn't require it to go awkwardly belly up just to receive a charge would be most welcome. If Apple does update the iMac with a newer, better, higher dynamic range mini LED panel, it would seem like the perfect opportunity to replace another long-missing part of Apple's Mac lineup, the cinema display. When Apple did their last major iMac redesign, an LED version of the cinema display followed closely behind, eventually becoming the Thunderbolt display. It just made sense, economies of IPS panel scales and all that. For the last few years though, Apple has offloaded mainstream consumer display responsibilities to LG, who makes the same great panels as the iMac, but nowhere nearly as well-designed cases. And that matters, not just because of the horn effect, the opposite of the halo effect, but because one of the primary selling points of the iMac is just how good it looks on your desk, at home, in offices, and especially in front-of-house consumer-facing businesses. And people who want MacBooks when they travel may also want that look when they're not traveling. But just like most people don't need the near high endless potential of the Mac Pro, most people don't need reference displays. They just want an Apple display, and a 5K mini LED one with the new iMac look and cinema display feel wouldn't just be a nice to have, it would be an Apple to have. Do I expect it? Alas, only when I see it. The xMac is almost mythical at this point. That's just one of the names given over the years, if not decades, to the idea of a Mac tower that's every bit as accessible and expandable, just not anywhere nearly as high-end as the Pro. Something in between the nearly completely sealed Mac Mini and the nearly limitless Mac Pro. Or, to put it another way, the exact opposite of the iMac Pro. Instead of adding massive Xeon cores and ECC memory to the iMac, making a more mainstream consumer version of the Mac Pro. Now, the vast majority of Macs that Apple sells are laptops. Of the small sliver of desktops that remain, the vast majority of those are iMacs. That it took the better part of a decade to update both the Mac Mini and the Mac Pro showed just how incalculably smaller consumer pressure is on any of those devices than on, say, I don't know, the iPhone, which never misses so much as a year. So it might seem like it makes little sense, either in terms of Apple's go-to-market balance sheet or our expectational debt sheet, to even consider the possibility of a smaller but still more expandable headless Mac in the box. But it would make so many nerds oh so happy, especially now that the cost of entry for the Mac Pro has leapt all the way up to $6,000, and I just have to include it on the list. Also because it would be awesome, and I'd love to see what Apple and their new workflows team could come up with for that sweetest of spots. Hell, if I was anywhere better at animating, I'd love to come up with something myself, but that's where Kyrgyzstan and Skillshare come in. If you've seen The Egg, legit one of the best YouTube videos of 2019, then you've seen Kyrgyzstan in action. And with Skillshare and Motion Graphics Part 1, you can see how they do it, in a nutshell. Seriously, so many cartoon birds died to bring us those videos. So many. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes in photography, video, business, technology, everything you need to make your life better. Premium membership gives you unlimited access to high-quality classes on must-know topics so you can get better at your job, get a better job, or just learn something that fulfills you that's not your job. Join more than 7 million creators learning with Skillshare. Just visit the link in the description and get 2 months of unlimited access to thousands of classes for free. Act now and start learning today. Thanks Skillshare, and thanks to all of you for supporting the show. Yes, okay, I know, I didn't mention multi-touch Macs at all, but I did an entire video on that already, and you can go back and take a look. Then, if you like this video, please share it so more people will find out about the channel. It really helps. Subscribe if you haven't already, back to the Mac that bell gizmo so YouTube will actually tell you when new videos go live. Then hit up the comments and let me know, which of these missing Macs do you miss most? And which do you want to see first? Thanks for watching, see you next video.